Hey, good morning.
Hey, BJ, can you hear me?
Got you.
All right, I got you. Excellent.
Welcome.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for inviting me. Much appreciated.
Yeah. Thanks for being willing to come on. I was excited to see your response. I really don't know much about your background at all as an athlete yourself, or as a parent, or as a coach and then a broadcaster. So I'm
Let's
interested to hear the whole scoop here.
okay. Yeah, it's mostly on the broadcasting side. My athletic career mostly consisted of professional wrestling, believe it or not. So not a lot of
Really?
basketball. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, that might be interesting for your listeners to hear about.
Yeah, totally. So I like to start with that. Like everybody I've interviewed so far, I like to go back to the childhood years and like what was the story as an athlete. So
Sure.
take us back to pro wrestling.
Well, I was a professional wrestler for, let's see, in 1998. I saw an ad, a story, not an ad, in the Boston Globe about this guy in Nashua named Jeff Costa, the Lobster Man, who has some degree of fame. And back then, if you wanted to get a hold of somebody, you called information and gave the name of the person and the town they were in, and if they were listed, you got their phone number. So I just called his house and I said, "Hey, I saw this story about you. I want to be a professional wrestler. How do I do it?" I was 20 years old at the time. Didn't have a whole lot going on. I wasn't going to college. I was working. Forget what I was doing, but it wasn't. I was working at a sheet metal factory, among like other things. And I wasn't having a good time. But so he trained guys in a wrestling ring in his backyard 3 days a week in Nashua. So I drive from Rochester to Nashua to learn how to be a pro wrestler. And after about 3 months of that, was ready to do pro wrestling shows, which, it's a stage performance, but there's a lot of athleticism involved in it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So
I don't think I've ever personally known anybody that was in pro wrestling. So
yeah.
unique background. So
Yeah.
how about take me back even farther then? Like, what was your childhood years growing up? Like, what sports did you play? What did that look like?
So I was a pretty decent little league baseball player. And I kind of stopped once I got to like age 13, I stopped playing baseball until I played men's league baseball much later on in life when I was like over 30. But I really liked little league baseball. In Rochester, Rochester's a pretty big baseball town. Roger Allen Park is like one of the better youth baseball facilities, I think, in the state. Back then it was East Side and West Side, and when you played Little League, it was 9 through 12 were all on one team. They didn't split up to like U10, U12, U3. It was like 9 through 12, you're on one squad, and then you go to play Babe Ruth when you're 13. So like you'd be a little 9-year-old facing like at bat, because everybody hit. You didn't necessarily play the field, but like if you had 13 kids on the team, that you had a 13-person batting order, everybody would hit. So you could be 9 years old and a 12-year-old, depending on who developed when, who had a mustache. It was like 5'11", was like looked like he was handing you the ball, from the mound. So it could be pretty terrifying. But I remember you played for the same team all 4 years. I played for Shop and Save on West Side.
Okay.
Yeah, we won like the city championship one year, I think when I was 10 or 11. But it was yeah, I really enjoyed little league baseball. Played a little rec league basketball. I was more of a McIsaac, you got 5 fouls to give. Go in there and annoy somebody.
Yeah. Okay.
So that was I couldn't shoot. I could barely rebound. I could pass okay, and I could get knocked down. So I drew a lot of charges. So that was my role. I was a gritty role player, I guess you could say, as a 6th grade rec player.
Take the charges and give the fouls. That's great. So is that also in Rochester, I guess?
Yeah. I grew up in Rochester, born and raised here.
Nice. All right. And so then what happened past your, I guess, age 20 wrestling career? What evolved next for you as an athlete? I guess we'll take that track first.
Well, so athletically, like I said, pro wrestling, it's a performance. I don't think that I'm telling any tales out of school, but there's a lot of physicality involved. So depending on who you are, it's called working with. So who you're working with, because you and your opponent, air quotes, are putting on you want them, like, everybody in the crowd knows it's all fake and everybody knows it's fake. But if you can make them forget for like 5 minutes, then you as a team, you and the guy you're working with, have beat the audience. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like, so
Right.
you're one team and the referee too, because if you have a lousy wrestling referee, it can ruin a match. So
Sure.
you guys are trying to beat the audience into forgetting it's fake. So I did that from 1998 when my wife Renee was pregnant with our second child, Keely. I said, I should probably stop doing this as much because it's, it was like every weekend, like 2 shows a weekend all over New England, sometimes in New Jersey. It was probably the AA baseball equivalent of pro wrestling, right? Like we got paid.
Yeah.
People had to pay to come see us, but it wasn't anything you could make a living off of. So I stopped doing it full time-ish right around 2004, 2005. And then a buddy of mine was running shows in Rochester. So I would do it, like once a month, I would go do wrestling shows just in my hometown until about 2009. And I was like, okay, I need to, I was more of the performance side than the physicality side. I had to train and practice like, the moves and stuff to be good at that part. And I really had to work at it. And when I didn't have the time to work at that, it was like, I'm trying to think of a basketball player at the end of it. It was like Antoine Walker when he was overweight and he's still out there just jacking up threes. That's what I was looking like at that time. So I shut it down, but yeah, since then, just as athletically, I guess I play a lot of golf now badly, not as badly as I used to, but I try to walk the course. So it's like an athletic thing. I played men's league baseball, fast pitch baseball for about 5 or 6 years. That was fun.
Okay.
But nothing you could call like true athletics. Not like the guys you work with or probably, associate with, but it's weekend warrior hero type of stuff.
Yeah. I have a tagline I've developed over time. It's just everybody's a rec player eventually. It's just a matter of right.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
We're all gonna play in the men's league basketball in our 40s, even if we had a 20-year pro career.
Right.
Just how it goes.
Yeah. What is it like? The game tells you when you're going to stop playing, right? No matter what game it is. And for some of us, it's sooner than others, right? Or sooner than, yeah.
Oh, that's cool. So then how about on the coaching front? Like, did you ever coach anybody else in wrestling or, any other sport?
So one of my good friends that I went to high school with, Brian Phillips, he became a pro wrestler also under the name Brian Fury. He actually eventually took over what was known as Killer Kowalski's pro wrestling academy in Massachusetts. Okay. So I occasionally I would go help they're called the Greenies, the new people. I would go help them learn some of the basics every now and then, nothing, formal or anything like that, just to help him out. He was a pretty successful wrestling trainer. He's got several of his former students that are in the WWE now. Wow. So he did a tremendous job with all that. As far as coaching, I would I think the only like real coaching, I guess you could say I did was I was like the 3rd or 4th assistant on when my son played rec league basketball. I was like the high five coach. I'm sorry, I should have meant that. When my daughter was 4, I coached her soccer team. And coaching 4-year-old soccer is, everybody should do it because it's a riot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the kid, first of all, it's a ton of fun. Secondly, it's a good experience because there's always there were 2 twins on that team who are both, I think, going to play soccer in college now. And it was very evident at the age of 4, like they were going to be, there was, I can't remember their names. Damn it. But it was a boy and a girl and they were twins and they were just dominant. And I eventually had to tell them you're going to be passing the ball for the rest of the game because you're making other 4-year-olds cry. So it's, and no one's here to see 4-year-olds cry. It's going to happen eventually, but nobody's here for that. So it was a good lesson in, I think it was a good lesson for the other for the other parents who could see their kids and be like, oh, okay, that kid, even at 4 years old, that's a different level.
Sure.
And it was a good lesson for the dominant athlete kids. Like, okay, until we get to high school and the goal is to win, we're gonna try and be sportsmanlike. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that's great. I agree. Like everybody should experience that youngest level of coaching, as it really changed your perspective a lot. Like actually just organizing the chaos and herding the cats is a win. Right.
And at that, and my philosophy is at that age, that age through about I would say 12. And obviously you coach, you train, so you have a different point of view on this. But to me, it's when most kids aren't going to play on their high school varsity team, right? Most kids aren't going to play in college. So when they're young, they should be either learning or having fun.
Right.
And hopefully both.
Ideally both. Yeah.
Yeah. Because, you can love that. You cannot be the best at a sport and still love it and still have a passion for it and still want to be involved in it. And a good coach can really foster that.
Right. No, I totally agree. So you mentioned a couple of kids. So tell me the journey as a parent. We're on the Basketball Parents Journey podcast. I don't know if your kids play basketball, but love to hear your story and your journey of your kids going through any athletics they've been involved in.
Sure. So both my kids played. My son tried a few different sports. He tried baseball. He didn't really like that. He tried basketball. He wasn't really into that. My daughter played soccer. She liked it, but I think not enough to play into high school or anything like that. They both played rec a lot, and Rochester has a lot of really good youth programs. Yeah. The RISA soccer program's great. The baseball and softball programs are great for youth. Rec basketball is great, and the even in the middle school, high school teams, they do a tremendous job. Have for years. Lauren Lucas is the current coach at Spalding. And he's had a long career of success from Somersworth to Oyster River to wherever he's gone. Before that, Tim Cronin, who always called President Cronin, who always got 150% out of his teams, I felt like. Yeah. But so they didn't play sports. I'm sorry. My son played an individual sport and actually had a lot of success. He's currently a collegiate bowler. Oh, wow. And 10-pin bowler. And he won the individual state championship as a senior. Wow. And was on the. A lot of people don't know there's varsity bowling in high school.
I certainly wasn't familiar with that.
Yeah. So there's like 16, 17 schools that do it. And Spalding's had a pretty good team for years. Cam's my son, Keely's my daughter. Cam started bowling when he was 7. Because I did that when I was a kid. I guess I neglected to mention that because I feel like this is a team sport podcast, but bowling is kind of an individual sport. So I did that as a child as well. Cam quickly eclipsed whatever I could do as far as a bowler pretty early on. Okay. He started all 4 years on the varsity at Spalding on the bowling team. And when he was a sophomore, he came in 4th in the varsity tournament. When he was a junior, it was the COVID year. It was a little weird. He came in 5th. And as a senior, he won the state championship. So that was pretty cool. Yeah. And he eventually got to a point where I would coach him a little bit, like try to stand here, do this, do that. But once he got beyond what I was capable of, he quickly got to a point where I was like, well, there's nothing I can teach you. We got to get you some real coaches.
Yeah. So. Yeah. So what's that world like? Like certainly something I'm not familiar with is, bowling coaches and like how to get to a high school varsity level of bowling. So tell me about what that process was like. When did he really start bowling? Like, I imagine he had to be 8, 9 years old to like pick up a ball and do anything with it. But tell me about that, like starting out bowling.
Yeah. So he started when he was 7 years old. I brought him to Dover Bowl, and the same woman was running the league, the youth league, as when I was bowling. Her name was Pam Cook, and she looked almost exactly the same as when I was a kid. And my daughter bowled for a while too. She bowled till she was about, I would say, 11 or 12. Okay. And so they were both doing it for a while. I think Cam liked it a lot more than Keely did. Well, Keely was pretty good, but I don't think she didn't have the passion for it. She eventually started doing drama club and dance and stuff like that, and really enjoyed that. Another thing Spalding and Rochester does well is like the drama and music program. But so Cam, when you start off, it's a 6-pound bowling ball. They can barely throw it down the lane. Yeah. It's like all youth sports, it's pretty funny. But he got good pretty quick. And when he got to high school, he does a different style of bowling than maybe you're used to seeing, a two-handed style. So an Australian guy who's considered the Tom Brady of bowling, Jason Belmonte, does this two-handed style where you kind of like lean over and one hand cups the ball and the other hand, you don't put your thumb in it. Okay. You swing it and it puts a lot more spin on the bowling ball. Yeah. So it can like break more drastically at the pins.
Okay. Yeah. I've seen people do that. I've never wrapped my head around how to make that work, but it looks cool.
Yeah, I still can't do it. Like I did the traditional one-handed bowling when I bowled, but Cam took to that, and when he got to high school, his coach Dan Bamford, whose son was Dan Bamford's son Xavier, and his daughter Rachel. Rachel actually, I think, eventually got a full ride to college on bowling, like the last 2 years. I think I could be wrong about that at Sacred Heart, and was like the Sacred Heart NCAA nominee for Woman of the Year from that school. Yeah, so she had a lot of success for that. So Dan started teaching Cam. They had a pretty good squad. I think they made the final for his freshman and sophomore years, and his senior year too, when it was Cam was like the only bowler on the team, and it was a bunch of band kids too. But it's a very interesting sport in that if you're going to do it at a high level, there's a lot of practice involved, and there's a lot of equipment. Cam owns currently, I think, 10 or 11 different bowling balls because he bowls in college, and you think of each one like a golf club. They all do a different thing. Okay. And the tournaments he does outside of high school, and he would do high level like individual tournaments, and now in college, they could make the lane conditions as hard as a professional tournament. So based on how much or how little oil they put on the lanes. Listen, we're way in the weeds now, right? But think of it. I think of it as
different balls and different oils for your lane.
It's a whole.
Thought about bowling.
You got to study a lot and like know what you're walking into. But like, imagine like if you were taking your team to a basketball tournament, and at this tournament the court's made of grass. So,
right.
But at the next tournament, it's going to be made of concrete. So you have to have like different shoes for the different conditions and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like that, and it's you have to be very precise. And it's kind of like shooting free throws. Like you have to forget the last one you missed and like focus on the next one. It's a very mental game.
Yeah.
But also when you get to the college level, like their tournaments last all day. Like I only got a chance to go to one this past season because of all the broadcasting I do. He bowls in New Jersey for William Patterson University. And it starts at 9 a.m. It doesn't get over to like 6 p.m. So they're bowling like all day. And throwing 15-pound bowling balls all day.
Yeah. That's got to be a certain specific level of athleticism for just doing that.
Sure. Yeah, his forearms look like Popeye. The rest of them's not in great shape, but his forearms.
Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah.
It's always interesting to look at the physique of a certain athlete and be able to identify, oh, you're a basketball player.
Right.
You're a bowler. Popeye forearms is the sign.
Your shoulders are the size of a hallway. You must be a swimmer, right?
Right, exactly. So I think the most relevant part for our audience is to kind of talk through what it was like to see Cam progressing and figure out like this is actually his thing. Like he's gonna really go after with bowling, and like how'd you navigate that and like help him along the way. Love to hear more of that story.
Sure. So when he really got real serious about it when he got to high school, because he knew there was, Spalding had a bowling team and it had a pretty good level of success. So then we started to see, different high level individual tournaments where like the competition level is a lot higher. The conditions are harder. So a lot of parents that listen to your podcast can relate, driving off at ungodly hours to different spots around New England, right? Like, you gotta go to Chicopee, Mass, and the tournament starts at 9 a.m. So we're leaving the house at 6 a.m. You know what I mean? A lot of stuff like that. Like, we're actually, he still competes in a lot of these at the U20 level now, but like we're going to Indianapolis in a few weeks for a national tournament. The crazy stuff like that.
Right.
So as he got better and better, my ability to help kind of went down. Although I would try to study and just watching pro bowling and just kind of like experience being around athletes broadcasting. My advice would be like hey, let's try to focus. You know what you're doing. You just gotta let's get confident. Confidence goes a long way. Try moving this way. Experiment. Get yourself into a groove and where you're giving yourself confidence, and that'll help. So, but most of it, as parents know, is just being there to support. Like, oh, you need something at the snack bar? Okay, let me get this. Buying a lot of equipment. There's like, oh, you need another bowling ball? What the hell does this one do?
Equipment
Okay.
manager and chauffeur is kind of the role most parents end up in, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And paying entry fees for tournaments, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
So,
right.
but it's, it's if your kid's showing passion with it, and, if Cam happens to be pretty good at it, but even if your kid's not good at it, if they're showing passion for it, I think just as a parent, like giving your kid the opportunities to do something he or she loves is, something really important.
Right. No, I think that's great. I'm always listening for parents. Is it a pull or is it a push? Makes a huge difference.
Right. I will tell you this though, because people might not think like when you go to basketball games or hockey games or whatever, there's always those parents, right, that are insane and maniacs.
Yeah.
Bowling has those,
Sure.
believe it or not.
I'm certain they exist in every sport.
The first time we went to one of these high level tournaments, we were there 5 minutes, and this girl and her mom were in an absolute screaming match about like, you didn't get this ball. It was, and I look at Cam, and Cam looked at me, and I'm like, what did we get ourselves into? Like,
yeah, right.
So
are we in the right place with these people?
It's wild out in them bowling streets, BJ, I tell you.
Sure. Yeah, I think having that approach, like seeing their passion, whether they have ability or not, like you're saying, is like, all right, let's let them have this next piece that they're pulling from us, kind of thing, versus as a parent, like, let's push you whole hog into bowling until you hate it. Has
right.
Dramatically different outcome and different, long-term motivation and all that. And I see all the time.
It's tough though, because when you're trying to do things the right way, I think there's sometimes you need to give your kid a push, right?
Sure.
But you don't want to push too hard or in the wrong way, because kids can be, you can kill their passion for it if you're being a jerk about it, or if you're and I feel, this is just me talking, but I feel like especially since COVID, kids, because that was such a kind of a traumatic year and a half, or 2 years. Like, I think kids are a lot more, I say kids, I mean like teenagers and kids, I guess too, are a lot more sensitive to like somebody really getting on their case. And I completely understand why, like, hey kids, we're locking you up for 2 years, so that you don't die. Yeah. That's a lot. That's like almost like going through a war. Sure. So there's some stuff, youth athletes are working out, and not just athletes, but every kid is working out. So, knowing when and how to push and when not to is tough for parents to learn and to figure out, Right.
Yeah, it's definitely a delicate balance for sure. So 2 questions I like to ask every guest that's kind of looking at the parent perspective is, what has worked well for you, in helping and guiding your children through their journey? What has been, one thing or a couple of things that kind of stuck out to you, like the things that worked well along the whole journey?
So I think, and this might seem counterintuitive, but like knowing when kids need a break. Like there have been times I've seen Cam like have a few, 2 or 3 tournaments in a row where, he wasn't performing up to probably what he expected or what we expected. And he's a lot harder on himself, I think, than I am on him. So knowing when to be like, all right, so maybe we're not doing tournaments for like 3 weeks because you need a break, either mentally or physically. Right. So knowing that, and also I would say just like not being phony. Like one of my strengths is humor. So I try to use humor with my kids. I think I know when I try to be a hard ass, they know I'm not really like that, and that won't work. So I don't do that. So you can only be who you are, and kids have good BS detectors. So don't try to be someone you're not, and just letting your kids know that if they come in first or last, you love them and support them. No matter what happens, like. Only a certain number of people. There's only really one person that walks away, especially from an individual tournament. There's only one team happy at the end of the season or the end of a tournament. There's only one player that's walking away with a first place trophy. So like most people are leaving disappointed, but if a kid knows they're loved and supported, no matter what happens, that goes a long way long term, I think.
Sure. No, that's great. And then the flip side is what has worked or what has not worked well for you. Like, what have you seen mistakes either you made or other parents made along the way that like Stay away from that.
Oh God. Well, if we're going to talk about all the mistakes I've made, this would be a 4-hour podcast. No, and I think it's, I think mostly just, pushing, I think as parents, we've all pushed kids into stuff maybe they didn't want to do, or maybe, you get frustrated and you let your kids see that. I think that's, and it's, like I said, it's a delicate balance, because I think kids do need to be pushed, whether it's athletics or music or, whatever. They need to be pushed a little bit, but with positivity. But when you let your kids see that you're frustrated, I don't think it helps. And I've been guilty of that. And I think every parent's been guilty of that. I try not to do it as much as other parents, because I've seen, from doing high school and college broadcasting, I've seen how lousy parents can really ruin a kid's experience. But I think we've all been guilty of it. So just, letting your kids see you're frustrated with either their performance or I don't think it's bad if your kid has a crappy attitude, which luckily my kids almost never do. But if your kid has a crappy attitude and you have to straighten them out, I don't think that's a bad thing. But if they're performing badly and you look frustrated, that's just, that's like a double punch in the gut, right?
Sure. Yeah, it's usually, I'd say every time they know when they're not doing well already.
Right. You don't have to tell them they messed up. They do.
Yeah, them seeing you frustrated that they're not doing what they know they should be able to do is not really helpful, right?
Right.
So, yeah, that's a great point. All right, so then I'd like to hear your broadcasting career story. We haven't even really touched on that yet, but how'd you get into that? And I guess how it started, how's it going kind of approach here?
Right. So I started, I got into radio at the tail end of my wrestling career, because as a pro wrestler, I was, I'm only like 5'10", and I was in decent shape when I was doing professional wrestling, but I wasn't like Hulk Hogan or anything. So I was able to get the crowd, riled up. I was always a bad guy, so I could get the crowd riled up by getting on the microphone and saying some dumb stuff or saying some entertaining stuff or whatever. So that was a natural transition into getting into radio. I as a huge fan of all the New England teams, I loved Bob Cousy back in the day, the Celtics broadcaster. I loved, Ned Martin for the Red Sox, and, whoever was Gil Santos, Capoletti with the pin. I wanted to, broadcast sports on the radio. So I got a radio job. I got a very late, for most people get into radio in college, and then they get out of college and they get their first job at like 22. I got a part-time radio job at the age of 31 at WHEB, what was called Clear Channel then in Portsmouth. Okay. Eventually I was able to pester my boss into letting me do Portsmouth High games on our AM station that you could only hear it in Portsmouth, basically. Okay. So did all the home games for Portsmouth High, boys and girls basketball. Luckily, those teams were really good at the time. Like the Portsmouth girls had Rosa Drummond, who had a great career at Smith College. And they had Kyle DeCesare, who was a great player. They had what the heck was his last name? The kid that eventually he was Mike Montville. He was a good high school basketball player, but he's an even better baseball player. Went to Maryland, and I think is still coaching. So they had great teams, and it was really a chance to like, when you do anything, you have to, the first, like I tell my kids this, and I tell anybody that wants to listen to my stupid advice, the first step to being good at something is sucking at it, right? So you have to be bad at broadcasting for a while, and then eventually you figure out what works, what doesn't work. I'm sure it's the same with basketball or coaching, right? Yeah, you can't shoot free throws for a while, and then eventually you can if you work at it. So I did that for a while. I moved to WTSN in Dover. Did all sorts of high school sports, basketball, football, baseball, softball, anything and everything. And that was just such a joy, because that was a radio station I listened to growing up as a kid. Okay. And it was, I got to do a lot of Spalding games, because I'm a Spalding grad. I'm a Spalding homer. And, the Seacoast at the time had just a lot of success from, whether it was Portsmouth or Oyster River or Spalding, Dover, Somersworth, all the schools around here were having a pretty good run. Yeah. Eventually that led into doing occasional college games in St. Anselm, some stuff for Southern New Hampshire. And it was 2017. I caught a break and got the color commentary job for radio with UNH football, which is which is like, that's a big deal. You travel with a team, you get to, you're one of the voices of UNH football, which hockey's king at UNH, but I think football's like right hot on its heels. It's had a lot of success over the years. So it's really been a fun, wild ride. And I've been lucky to have a lot of support from my wife and family, who, when you're broadcasting, you're away from home a lot at night, and it's on weekends. So it can be a grind, but it's not like you're digging ditches. You know what I mean?
Right. Oh, that's cool. So you've really kept it local your whole career, but navigated your way right up to near the top, I guess I would say, for UNH in New Hampshire.
Yeah, and last year I ended up doing I did a lot. I think we counted the number of basketball games I did. I ended up doing 67 or 68 basketball games in the collegiate season. I did most of the home games for Dartmouth men and women on their radio. I did a lot of Southern New Hampshire, did a few St. Anselm. So at this point I'm doing almost exclusively college games, but pretty much New Hampshire / New England. Yeah,
that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So what's your favorite part of broadcasting?
Boy, that's a tough question. Because I mean, obviously, I just being such a huge sports fan, being when those exciting moments happen and you get to be like courtside or rink side or whatever for that, and when you absolutely like nail a call and people like, there was Ethan Aquosa of Southern New Hampshire, who just transferred to BU. He hit it like a right before halftime, hit a shot from the opposite foul line. And if you've been in the Stan Sparrow Fieldhouse, like one side of the gym is near Hooksett, the other side is going towards Manchester, because like Southern New Hampshire, I think, touches 3 towns, or St. Anselm does as well. So he hit like a 70-footer from the left side of the gym, and I was like, Ethan Aquosa from the Hooksett town line. And like, I think it was a Sports Center top 10 highlight they ran, because the athletic department sent it in. But when you go off the air for a minute, you're like, oh man, I nailed that. That was awesome. That's a really good feeling.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So you're there for so many of those exciting moments, being courtside, like you said, and getting to express your emotion. Like I've always thought of, like, I see people that like go to any game, like they're going to the Celtics game alone for whatever reason, and it's like, how do you even enjoy the game? Like, you can't celebrate with anybody. It's another thing to like be with your buddy and like, high five and jump up and down, but then I imagine it's a whole nother emotional level of experience. Like, you're able to fully express whatever you're feeling out loud and like celebrate with the whole crowd in the gym and all that. It's pretty cool.
Right. Yeah. And it's a bit of a high wire, because you get one chance, right? If something exciting happens, you get one chance, and you either get it right or you get it wrong. And it's not like you get it wrong in your living room and nobody notices. Like if you screw it up, you hear about it. But if you get it right,
back to what you said, the first step is sucking at it for enough time to improve, right? Like you stumble over your words or whatever when there's a big moment happening in a high school game, and eventually you get good at that, I imagine.
Yeah, but also if you get it right, you get to hear about it too, which is a lot of fun too.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Oh, that's awesome. I like hearing that whole story. It's pretty cool to hear your journey just as a broadcaster. Like, you've had a lot of steps along the way. It's pretty neat.
And especially my foundation of doing high school games around here, I think was really great for me personally, because you get to know a lot of these kids, the boys and girls out there playing, and giving it their all, and you see their highs and their lows. And if you're there a lot and you experience it, you experience those moments, and you get to the privilege of seeing those moments. Like I've seen a lot of kids have their best moment of their lives up to that point, right? And I've also like seen kids have like their lowest moment, and if they know you're there all the time, you don't become part of the team or anything like that, but you become like, they're like, they'll talk to you about it, and you form relations. Like I was talking to, I left a comment on Nick McGregor, who played for Spalding. He was a really good player for them. They went to a couple Final Fours. They had this tremendous run, Spalding did, where they had a buzzer beater. I forget what year this was. Luke Roberts hit a buzzer beater against Manchester West. Then they had a bus crash going to Nashua South, I think it was. So they had to reschedule the game. They got a buzzer beater in that game to send it to overtime to win to get to the Final Four. They eventually like kind of ran out of gas and lost, but like I'll never forget that. I'm sure Nick McGregor, Dom Parody, and Luke Roberts, who hit those two amazing shots, he'll never forget those things.
Yeah.
And Nick had a post up. He's switching jobs. He was a gym teacher at Merrimack Valley, and he's like, "Oh, 6 years here, and you know, on to the next adventure." I'm like, "How is it possible you've been a teacher for 6 years when 10 minutes ago I was calling your high school games?" You know, it's just, you know, I'm still, you know, I see some of these kids around the area because they still live in Rochester. They're not kids now; they're full adults.
Sure.
And you know, I'm thrilled to see them. You know, they're hopefully not horrified to see me, and it's just a nice, it's a great experience, you know, and it's something you carry with you.
Sure. Yeah, you really develop a rapport with them, especially I imagine like after one of those big shots, you're probably doing like a courtside interview with them or something after the game a lot of the time. So you get to know what their personality's like as well as what they're like as an athlete. So.
Yeah, and so many of the coaches too, like Jay McKenna became like the Winnicott head coach, become a close friend of mine, you know, like Lauren Lucas, you know, who taught at the Rochester school system, you know, Matt Fennessy, you know, all these coaches you get to know and respect. High school basketball coaches are so, you know, so dedicated, you know, so so knowledgeable, so patient, especially with the stuff they have to deal with from parents and whatnot. You know, not all parents, I just want to say that, but some of them, it's a lot to deal with. You know, you know, Jim Mulvey, now John Mulvey, all those, you know, I'm leaving a lot of people out, all the men and women that do those jobs.
Right.
It's so hard, but they're so skilled. And the kids that play high school basketball are so lucky to have those coaches that are so dedicated. And I'm so lucky to have become friends with so many of them. It's such a valuable experience.
No, that's pretty cool. I just had a great interview with Jay McKenna actually a week or so ago. We're going to get that episode released shortly. But
I can't wait. Yeah,
certainly the longevity of what they're doing, like reinventing the wheel every year with a new crew of players and try to find a way to succeed is is a huge challenge. So you know him doing that now 18 years is just super impressive to me. And like keeping the motivation and you know the excitement he has about each new season with that you know kind of being on the hamster wheel in some ways. Like we got the new crew coming in and we got to reinvent how we're going to approach this and somehow come out with a way to win and you know keep it fun and keep the kids really engaged. It's a huge skill set that they have. Yeah,
fun fact about Jay McKenna, he's the only coach I've gone to a punk rock show with.
Oh yeah,
he and I went to see Real Big Fish a number of years ago because we're both ska punk fans. So
that's funny. Good trivia to know about Coach McKenna.
That's right.
Awesome. So I want to leave off with one more question for you, which is simply, what is your advice to parents? You know, we've got a lot of our audience is parents of kids like 8 to 14 years old that are probably trying to play high school basketball or a high school sport in some area.
Sure.
And, you know, they're trying to figure out how to navigate the journey of, you know, all the complications and all the levels of competition and everything that goes on out there. So love to hear your thoughts. What would you give as advice to parents? Well,
again, this could be another 3 hours because I've had I've had a lot of thoughts about, you know, the way, especially at the high school and youth level, you know, the way you see a lot of coaches that are stepping aside, a lot of referees that are stepping aside because they're just getting, you know, worn out from parents kind of making their jobs even harder. So I would say, when your kid plays high school basketball, and I'm stealing a line from Jay McKenna, actually, there's AP physics, there's AP history. And when your kid plays varsity basketball, that is AP basketball. And the teacher is an expert. The coach is an expert at that. So let the coach do their job, whether, you know, no matter who he or she is, let that coach do their job because they're spending a ton, you know, they're spending a ton of time scouting. They're spending a ton of time making sure your son or daughter is the absolute best they can be. And that goes across all sports, I'd say, not just basketball, but, you know, you're a basketball guy. So I'll kind of focus it that way. The second thing I'd say is try to have realistic expectations. I don't know how many parents I've seen who think their kid is going to play for Michigan. Yeah. And and there is nothing wrong, not a damn thing wrong with your kid, you being the 8th man on the varsity, or being like the 9th man or woman on the varsity team, or nothing wrong with playing junior college or D3. D3 is such good basketball, and people don't get it. Like the University of New England, Plymouth State, that is extremely good basketball. But I think parents, especially, and sometimes kids think, well, if I don't go to Duke or North Carolina, I've failed. No, you haven't. That stuff's hard, man. It is hard to play college basketball, college sports at any level, and it's a full-time job. The other thing I would say is, if you want your kid to have success, make sure they are experts at fundamentals. When doing D2 and D1 NCAA games, this is the first year I kind of had a full-time D1 basketball job, right? And the Dartmouth men's team, they didn't, they were under 500. They were very exciting. They were very talented. They were very skilled. But when you watch them warm up, nobody misses a shot. Nobody misses a defensive rotation. You know what I mean? Everybody's setting screens correctly. All the little things that you don't think about, they are so crisp. They're so like on top of it. And this is a team that didn't make the Ivy League tournament. They weren't even top 4 in the Ivy League. They were a very good team, I thought, but they were so good. Make sure your kid's like an expert at the little things. Yeah. Okay, great. You can shoot 3-pointers. Can he set a screen? Can he or she defend?
Right.
You know what I mean? All the things coaches want to see.
Right.
Defense, especially if your kid can't shoot a lick, but can defend, they're going to play.
Yeah.
Like they are going to play a lot. Coaches need kids that can defend.
Right.
And there was one other thing I was going to add, but I can't remember what. Oh, just be. Oh, yeah. Here's what it is. Teach your kid to be a good teammate. Teach your kid to be a good teammate, because no, everybody knows. Everybody has either known or played with a kid that's a superior athlete, is tremendous, but is an absolute nightmare, right? And nobody wants to play with that kid. I think the kids I remember, broadcasting and even when I was a kid playing with, weren't necessarily like, the most talented or skilled, but they were like so much fun to play with, and always had your back. So try to that's a skill, I think, being a great teammate. So try to teach your kid to be a great teammate. So leave the coaches alone, fundamentals, teach a kid to be a great teammate, and manage your expectations.
I think that's great. I want to touch on what you said about the the college level players and how crisp they are fundamentals. Like, I definitely see what you said. Like all the players wanted to go D1 or bust kind of thing.
Right.
Like if I can't make it to D1, then I'll just quit, whatever. And the more I've seen the D3 players, and like I've seen even players that are actively playing Division III college, and they come to me and I'm like, your skills are terrible. Like clearly you're a great athlete and you made it to college, but like gives me a lot of confidence. Like just about any player that's playing varsity high school basketball, given enough skilled fundamentals, they could play college basketball. It's just a matter of their athleticism determining, how high they could go, in my mind. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Like athletic talent could carry you pretty far, but if you want to go next level, like, go watch an NBA team warm up, you know what I mean? Or watch, I don't think I once saw any Dartmouth kid in a bad defensive stance.
Right.
You know what I mean? They're always, it was just those little things that really jump off the page of you. That's when you can tell whether a team's well coached or not, is those little things. Right. And you have to be an absolute master at those if you want to get your full potential out. Like,
I really see a lot of the athletes going really far up to a point, and then it's the super skilled fundamental with athleticism that really takes it to that next level. And I think a lot of kids are getting by with their athleticism to a certain point, and then they hit a ceiling where it's like, oh,
right,
this guy is just as athletic as me, but he's been solid on fundamentals for the last 4 years, and now I can't get by him defensively, or I can't guard him if I'm the defender. It's really tough.
It's especially kids in New Hampshire, right? Because if you're a good athlete in New Hampshire, you'll go pretty far. But then when you start playing against kids from like Massachusetts or New York or like New Jersey, you're like, oh snap, I'm in the deep end of the pool now, aren't I? I better have some fundamentals.
Right. No, it's the ultimate small pond in New Hampshire basketball for sure. It's like you drive 30 minutes south of the border and you're going to find kids that are way more athletic and skilled than you are, and you got to really fight for the chance to be on any kind of team. when that bigger pool hits you.
Indeed.
Yeah. Cool. Well, this has been a great conversation, Justin. I appreciate your time.
Oh, BJ, thanks for inviting me. This was a ton of fun. Anytime I get to talk about myself, I will take that opportunity.
That's great. I'll send you the final cut when we get this edited and released out there.
Awesome, man. Yeah, thanks so much. This is cool. I've listened to a few of them. This is a good thing you're doing. I like it.
Well, thanks. All right. Have a great day, dude.
All right, man. Take care.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.